happened to my speaker? Speaker. I didn't pay it.
George, when you get a chance. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Today is November 25th. Time is 7:02 p.m. We have a hearings meeting of the Springfield City Council. This is our third meeting tonight, so thank you for bearing with us. We're starting a couple minutes late. Madam Clerk, we'd like to start. If you could please call the roll.
Councillor Walsh.
Present.
Present. Councillor Allen.
Present.
Present. Councillor Delgado.
Present.
Present. Councillor Click-Bruce.
Present.
Present. Councillor Govan.
Present.
Present. Councillor Brown.
Present.
Present. Councillor Davila. Present. Councillor Curran.
Present.
Present. Councillor Santinello. Absent. Councillor Edwards.
Present.
Present. Councillor Whitfield.
Present.
Present. Councillor Perez. Absent. Councillor Fenton.
Present. Will the clerk please recognize the counselor in seat number 9?
Councillor Santinello. Present.
Will the council and our guests please rise for a moment of silence? Councillor Click-Bruce.
Yes, I'd like to take this moment of silence for someone who passed away, a pillar in our community, Samuel Bass, and also to State Rep Bud L. Williams, who actually was his brother-in-law. So our sincere condolences to the Bass family.
Thank you, Councillor Click-Bruce.
And if I may, Council President, I would also like to recognize Margie Kerr. She was also in the community, did work in the community, might not be a public figure, but she's still someone that we can do a moment of silence for, also my cousin. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whitfield. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Madam Clerk, first item, please.
First item is an amendment to Chapter 327, Solid Waste.
Okay. Councilors, this item is on. I put it on under suspension tonight. Director Signoli asked me to put it on. We passed first step of this at a recent meeting, and because I did not realize that it was an ordinance, I thought it was just an order. I never put it on for second and final passage. So that's why you're seeing that on tonight. Director Signoli?
So I didn't get to give you a hard time about that. Good. Thank you, councilors, for having me back again. On October 18th, we voted the first step for the modifications of the ordinance. And as Councilor President Fenton said, we are back tonight to do steps 2 and 3. And obviously, before the vote, I would be happy to answer any additional questions the councilors have on the modification to the ordinance.
Okay. Thank you, Director Signoli. Any councilors with comments or questions on this? Okay. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll. This is for second and final passage. Director, this year we changed our rules. There is no more third step. So there's just one step and then 2 steps. Madam Clerk.
On second and final, Councillor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Delgado.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Click-Bruce.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Curran.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Santinello.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Perez, absent. Councillor Fenton.
Yes, present.
Present and yes, Councillor Fenton.
Yes. Point sufficient. Ordinance is ordained.
Thank you, councilors.
Thank you, Director. Okay, so, Madam Clerk, item number 2, please.
Item number 2 is a special permit for a request for 1-year extension of an existing special permit granted November 29th, 2022, and it is for the address 169 Maple Street.
Okay, good evening. This is a special permit hearing of the Springfield City Council conducted consistent with the Massachusetts Zoning Act, Chapter 40A, and the laws and ordinances of the City of Springfield. Under those rules, each applicant will have an opportunity to present their case. It's up to 20 minutes. Do not need to take all of that time. After that, if there's opposition, we'll offer the opposition that same amount of time to speak. And if there's a need, we can do rebuttals thereafter. But with that, if there's someone here on behalf of the petitioner, if you could please step forward, state your name and address, and tell us a little bit about your request here this evening.
Okay, my name is Joy Martin. I live in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm here on behalf of Davenport Advisors for our development of 169 Maple Street into approximately 11 market rate family housing development. And we're here to ask for extra time because due to interest rates, cost of material, and cost of construction, we have found it hard to come to a budget that is feasible, that would allow us to continue the project. But we have been fortunate enough to be awarded an HDIP award from the state with the extra funding that was allowed. And we think that with that, we will be able to have a budget that will allow us to offer a market rate housing for families at a rate that is affordable for Springfield. And we ask for that extra year so that we can finalize matters and begin construction.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Okay, counselors at home, can you hear us okay? I know we were having an audio issue from a moment there. Can you hear us, Counselor Perez?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Martin.
Okay.
Anyone else here to speak on behalf of the petitioner this evening? Say again, anyone wishing to speak on behalf of the petitioner? Seeing none, that closes this portion of the hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Yes, sir. Are you here to speak in opposition for this petition? This is for 169 Maple Street. If so, come forward to the podium. Okay. Could please come.
Say 2 things about it.
Okay. Please introduce yourself, name and address, and then you can address it.
Anthony Briglio, I have the office right beside it on 167 Maple Street.
Thank you.
Okay, so my first thought is when construction starts, good, but they can't use my lot for construction vehicles or personal vehicles. That's how I make my living.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, I drew a little map. Basically what it is their building is hard against my property in one section. So we have a chain link fence. I drew maps. And part of that fence was taken down so they could get in. They have to go through my property to get the back of their apartment. Fine. But now there's a big hole, and homeless people have been going through there, and I'm picking up trash. It'll probably get better now that it's getting colder, but at least when they finish, it should have a gate back there again.
Okay.
Right now, it's that hole, and anybody can just walk through. But I'm all in favor of it.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition or at all? Okay. Seeing none, that'll close this portion of the hearing. Ms. Martin, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, we are aware of your close proximity to the building, and we have no intention during construction to utilize any of your parking or to disturb your business. Currently, we are not the owners of the building. The city is the owner of the building, so I cannot address the matters that you brought up around the condition of the fencing or anything else, because that is not in our purview.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Martin. Anyone else to speak in favor in rebuttal? Seeing none. Sir, do you have anything else you'd like to add? No? Okay. That'll close this portion of the hearing. Are there any counselors with questions for the applicant or residents for this petition? Counselor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, so I'm a little confused between the two testimonies. the gentleman that just brought up these concerns about his property, they are not, it's not an issue with the petitioner, or is it? I'm not clear. And if it is a concern, can it be written into the conditions?
What I'm saying is that we are not owners of the property right now. We have been designated as the preferred developer, and we do have an agreement with the city to have a transfer of the property take place, but as of today, we are not the owners or responsible for the property. So I'm just stating that I cannot address the concerns as it relates to the condition of the property as it is today, because it's not under our control or management.
And the gentleman, sir, your main concern is their use of your property?
Yes.
So, sir, your main concern is their use of your property when this petition is granted?
Yeah, when the construction vehicles there, personal vehicles, filling up my small lot in front, that my patients need to get in.
Yeah, I think this is something we should address through conditions. And maybe we should ask Phil if that can be. Is Phil here? Phil's here. Phil. Earn your money. I'm concerned about the neighbor whose property may be used. Is there something we can do with conditions to prevent?
Well, we can certainly ensure that once the property is transferred and construction starts,
Yeah.
not be used. They can't just use somebody else's property without some type of approval. I can also check with our housing department, see about fence. Again, Joyce Point, the city owns the property right now, so it has to be transferred to the city technically.
Okay, so this is an extension. Will they be coming back for us again?
No, this was granted just about 2 years ago.
Okay,
So they need the extension because the special permit expires without the extension. So hopefully, within the next year, the construction will start, the property will be transferred and opened up.
okay. So in your opinion, with your expertise, do you think we need to put something into the conditions to make sure
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Walsh and Phil. Councilor Edwards?
To try to address Councilor Walsh's concerns, Davenport has, doesn't, as it's been already stated, doesn't control or own the property. This just, as the preferred developer, they are going through the legal hoops in order to be able to start construction. They and any other construction company has no right to go on anybody else's property. And from the beginning of this process, the owner of the dentist or the gentleman that's here has made it very clear that he didn't want any disruption to his business, and Davenport has been in agreement to that. The fence needs to be replaced or fixed, but the responsibility of doing that is the city, because the city has control of it, and then until construction starts and the property actually is transferred, the responsible agent is the city of Springfield. So it just simply is a request or a call to somebody in the housing department to have the fence fixed in the interim time. But once that, Davenport has created a, when they're doing their construction project and plans, they have taken in consideration. They know that they can't go on his property. They know they can't park on his property. And they, just like any other construction in the city, you can't just walk on somebody's property without their permission.
Thank you, Councilor Edwards. Okay. Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Doctor. So you are 167 Maple Street, correct?
Yes.
I'm sorry, what's your full name, sir? Your name?
Anthony Breglio.
Breglio. You're a dentist, correct?
Yes.
Next door. Thank you, Dr. Deglio. Am I pronouncing that correct? Greglio. Greglio. Dr. Greglio. Okay. Greglio. Mr. President, Phil, quick question for you, not to beat out the horse here. I think Dr. Greglio has some good points. How quickly can we get that fence fixed for him?
The best I can do is make some calls tomorrow and see if we can get somebody out there.
And to who?
Excuse me?
To who?
I guess I'm gonna have to see who the RFP probably went out through the Office of Housing, so I'd have to contact the
Yeah.
Housing Department to see about getting
Yeah.
somebody over there to take care of the
Yeah,
fence.
yeah, and I'm sure you will. I just want to voice that we need to do this pronto because we all know the area could be challenging at times. And so I think Dr. Greglio has brought some good points. That's it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Counselor Davila. Any other counselors with comments or questions before we close the hearing? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the hearing. Any other deliberation? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll on the approval of the special permit.
On approval, Counselor Walsh. Yes. Yes, Counselor Allen. Yes. Yes, Counselor Delgado.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Click Bruce.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Brown. Counselor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Curran.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Santinello.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Fenton.
Yes, more than sufficient. Special permit is approved. Counselor Allen on the reasons. Got to dust those off. It's been a while since we had a special permit here. We caught you flat-footed for once.
Okay, the reasons for a granted special permit are as follows. The specific site is an appropriate location for such a use, structure, or condition. The use developed will not adversely affect the neighborhood. Adequate and appropriate facilities will be provided for the proper operation of the proposed use, and to incorporate the planning staff analysis and the decision of the basis of the findings.
Thank you, Counselor Allen. Madam Clerk, please call the roll on the reasons.
On approval of the reasons, Counselor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Delgado.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Click Bruce.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Curran.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Santinello.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Perez. Counselor Perez. Away, Counselor Fenton.
Yes. Will you please try Counselor Perez one more time, Madam Clerk?
Counselor Perez on the reasons?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, more than sufficient. Reasons are approved. Item number 3, Madam Clerk.
Item number 3 is a zone change to change the zoning of the property known as East Side Ingersoll Grove from Residence A to Residence B.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here on behalf of the petitioner for this zone change petition for Ingersoll Grove? We'd invite you to please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and tell us a little bit about your request. Wait, one moment.
there we go.
One moment, man. We got a point of order. It might be from Counselor Brown. Counselor Brown?
No, it's not a point of order. I'm just waiting.
Or you want your hand in the queue? Okay, got it. Ma'am, please, if you could turn the microphone on by just pressing the icon. There you go. You got it. You have the
Yes.
floor.
My name is Regina Tillery Jenkins, lifelong resident of City of Springfield, city where I grew up and was raised, went away to school, came back, and was part of the McKnight district as a child. When I grew up, I bought my first house in the McKnight district. So it's a city in which I love. It's a community in which I love. And from there, I'll pass it on to my son, Brenton.
How's everybody doing? Appreciate you for taking the time to listen to our proposal. Just introducing myself quickly, my name is Brenton Jenkins. I live currently on 123 Ingersoll Grove. I'm here speaking on behalf of myself and my parents, Scott and Regina. As she just mentioned, they're two lifelong 60-year residents of Springfield. I've been here, born and raised 30 years myself. And just to give you guys a little bit of background before I go into, our objective and everything. I'm a young local entrepreneur. You guys might have seen me around or heard of me. My stage name is DJ Onyx. My business is Vision Entertainment. I work closely with Springfield Public Schools and other small businesses here in the city. And my business is very much of Springfield. That's why I got it built into my logo and everything. But to just get into our objective of what we're here talking about, we're requesting, and I do have some bullet points that I'm going to go down, so, forgive me if I stop for a minute. But anyway, we have our objective, and we're requesting to rezone our property that we own on Ingersoll Grove from Zone A to Zone B, to construct a multifamily unit aligning with the needs of our family and our long-term goals for the area and for the space that we have. I do have a personal connection to the neighborhood now. I did not grow up in the McKnight district. I grew up closer to Pine Point and everything. But after college graduation from Westfield State, my parents had an opportunity to invest in this property and, allowed me to, live there and, kind of spread my wings and things like that. So just have, I have a personal connection. I've essentially become a man in this house, in this neighborhood and so forth. And I've become invested in the historical context of the district as well. My vision is to stay there and to invest in the community and to invest in the adjacent property that we have next door. And I would be, I'd have to mention that it's a pathway towards generational wealth for myself. I have to go out there and mention that. So we did have some community feedback. Our proposal has already been reviewed by the planning board. It's already been reviewed by the McKnight Council. The McKnight Council resulting in a 4-4 split vote. So they weren't necessarily able to give us a letter of recommendation, but they weren't able to, give us a negative, non-letter of recommendation as well. I think it's also important to mention that the president of the council did vote yes on our project. Stating, his support for the project and that there might be some merit behind our reasons for doing so. We also have several letters of recommendation from people in the community, people in the McKnight district, as well as some verbal consent and approval from our adjacent neighbors on the left in front of us, on the right side as well. I also wanted to provide a little bit more context around the area specifically where we live on Ingersoll Grove in the McKnight district. And so a little bit of context around that. There's already the area already includes other multifamily homes and apartment complexes. The land of which we're speaking about, I live at 123. There's a lot that we own next door. That's the property that we're talking about getting rezoned. But I live in 123. That's a multifamily house. The other property on the other side of the vacant lot is also a multifamily. I think it's also important to mention that at the corner of Bowdoin and Ingersoll, there's an apartment complex there for, very big apartment complex that doesn't really fit the aesthetic of the community and, just wanted to mention that. But there's also an apartment complex on Worthington as well. I just also wanted to mention that while single-family Victorian homes do dominate the area and the neighborhood, I think it's important to note and mention that other styles of homes do exist in the neighborhood already. For example, on the other end of Ingersoll, away from where I live, there are a few ranch-style homes that don't necessarily, they're houses that differ architecturally from others in the district. But the only reason I just wanted to bring that up is just to state that there are other homes and styles that already previously exist in the neighborhood and so forth. Additionally, I just want to address the housing crisis that is kind of plaguing, residents of Massachusetts, especially Western Mass, you could say, nationally as well. But according to a recent Mass Live article published November 15, 2024, states that gateway cities like Springfield faces severe affordable housing shortage. So while our project isn't, talking about green lighting some massive apartment complex that, can address those numbers in a bigger scale, we are talking about, addressing the needs of our immediate family and so forth. So our immediate family, myself as well, I'm included in that. Like as I've mentioned before, I'm a young entrepreneur. I will be living in the property next door. It's a great opportunity for, me to essentially repeat the process of, being 22, moving out of my parents' house into this, 123 property and allowing myself to grow, allowing myself to spread my wings, grow my business. I'm hopefully going to be starting a young family within the next few years. So, it would be an opportunity for me to spread my wings and, get myself off of the third floor with a little baby or a pet, walking around or something like that. So, just moving on to my next point about the financial necessities of, with housing costs soaring and rising, the multifamily design will allow me to use the unit, to rent out to another family member, and manage the mortgage in a better way. Just from being a young entrepreneur, that would be something that would help me, be able to pay our bills, be able to build generational wealth, and financial stability within Springfield. So we do have some commitment to the community standards. If anybody knows anything about the McKnight District, then there are a lot of community and historical standards that the area stands by, and we plan to meet with the Historical Commission and the guidelines, and we have designed a property with the historical context in mind. So something that my mom has that I don't know if we're able to put up on the big screen or anything, but we do have renditions. We do have renditions of, what a classic home based on the historical context might look like. You'll also see there's a floor plan or, some schematics as well, pointing towards us pointing the parking situation towards the back, kind of pulling the off-street parking, or the on-street parking, off of the street and kind of relocating that to the back area. So, not only are we planning to meet all of the historical commissions, we also don't want to contribute to the potential problem that the apartment complex in the corner of Ingersoll and Bowdoin provides, just because they don't have adequate parking for their residents. And so that kind of spills onto the street and kind of becomes a nuisance for everybody that lives on that side of Ingersoll and Bowdoin and so forth. So I just wanted to mention that because we are not going to be contributing to any clutter or, I'm mentioning this because it was brought up in previous meetings and so forth about first responders being able to come in and out freely and so forth. I do live right there, so I do see if ambulance or fire truck or police vehicles coming in and out, garbage trucks as well. I don't necessarily see them having problems getting in and out, but I just wanted to mention that we are not going to be adding to a potential problem that apartment complex in the corner might cause. So we do have some broader benefits to the community. Increased tax revenue for the city of Springfield to collect on. We do have enhanced neighborhood aesthetics, with a thoughtful design property. As you see, it's going around right now. We really tried to keep the historical context in mind, but we're able and we're willing to change things to meet further context and as well. And we also have, I already mentioned this already, but the additional off-street parking that we're looking to relocate to the back of the property, so we don't add to a problem that is potentially in that corner of Ingersoll and Bowdoin. So that's my closing. I just want to thank you guys for taking the time to listen to our request. We hope that you'll approve our support and support our needs for our housing needs and enable us to achieve our long-term goals. So I just wanted to pass it back. That's our time for right now. We'll pass it back to you guys if you have any questions, and we'd be happy to answer.
Thank you so much. Before we get to questions, is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of the petition? We'd invite you to come forward at this time.
We have some letters. I don't know if that did come to get some letters.
We did receive in our record, ma'am, we have a letter from Emily Harrison and a letter from Crystal Hodge. And we also have a letter from the McKnight Neighborhood Council, those 3 letters. Do you have additional letters to submit? Thank you. Okay, can you please give, are those 2 different letters, ma'am, that you're passing, or they're 2 different ones?
one letter on each side, and it's from.
It's the same one. Would you mind giving it to the clerk, Councilor Davila? That's one we haven't seen yet, Madam Clerk? Okay, can we get, Sean, would you mind making a copy of that for all the councilors? Okay, and is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition tonight? Say again, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Okay, seeing none, that'll close this portion of the hearing. Oh, would you?
Yep, I will.
Okay, you can come on up.
Hi.
Please, just introduce yourself, name and address, and
Hi.
you can pick up where they left off.
Good evening. My name is Kimberly Caldwell, and I live at 50 Los Angeles Street here in Springfield, Massachusetts. I just want to say that I ride through that area. I was born and raised here as well in Springfield, Massachusetts, and it is a beautiful area over there. The houses are to die for. But interesting enough, I do notice that there are ranches amongst these historical big homes, and I was taken aback a little bit when I saw them, because I said, how did they get here? You know, because they don't fit. They don't fit the cut there. So I just want to speak in favor of, this is like a second family to me, and I just want to speak in favor for them. You won't be disappointed. As you can see, the house is going around. It will fit. You won't even notice, because it fits right into the pattern that is going on in the neighborhood right now on Ingersoll Drive. And I just always think someone deserves a chance. I know it'll be a 2-family, but there's 2 families right around the corner. There's an apartment block right at the end of the street that I know from years ago has created some issues, and now it's silent, but it's still there. So I would say for everyone here to take a look at the information that you have, to take a look at the documentation that you read, the testimonies that you have, and really, really think about giving them an opportunity to build something that would be great for the Springfield area. And they're from here. I believe a developer just came up and said they're from Boston, getting ready to develop here in Springfield. They're lifelong residents here, so just give them a chance, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Okay, anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Say again, anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Okay, seeing none, we'll close that portion of the hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Okay, ma'am, if you could please come forward, state your name and address for the record. We're gonna, Reese? You need to turn the microphone on, please. There's a little icon with a face.
Sorry, start that again. My name is Attorney Jennifer Rao. I'm representing both myself at 29 Ingersoll Grove, as well as the Delizia family who lives at 23 Ingersoll Grove. As far as the petition for zone change, all the evidence presented tonight has not satisfied the test that the Massachusetts Supreme Court has issued for a zone change. There is a very specific test required. That test, as announced in the 1962 case of Barnhart versus Board of Appeals of Scituate, states that a variance will be authorized only where, owing to conditions especially affecting such parcel, but not affecting generally the zoning district in which it is located, a literal enforcement of the provisions would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, et cetera, et cetera. That first prong of the test has not been met. The specific conditions of the land have to be soil conditions, shape, or topography of the land. Without those very unique conditions, a variance cannot lawfully be granted. Here, this lot is exactly the same as the lot they own next door at 123 Ingersoll. This lot is perfectly situated for a single-family home. There's nothing that would prevent building a single-family home on the lot. And that is the very conclusion that the court reached in the case I just mentioned, where an owner petitioned to permit construction of a 2-family dwelling in an area that was restricted to single-family dwellings, and the court held that the variance couldn't be granted because the findings show that the land is, quote, adapted to the very use permitted by the bylaw, namely the construction of single-family residences, rather. In addition to not meeting the first prong of the test. The second prong of the test is that there have to be financial impacts that are unique to them. The financial impacts he cited are the same that all of us face that live in the neighborhood. We all have to support these large Victorian homes, historic homes that require a tremendous amount of investment. So to allow somebody else to be able to build a two-family or a multifamily in a single-family neighborhood so that they can glean the economic benefits of it, what about every other family in that neighborhood who can't rent out half their house and who wants to keep a single-family neighborhood feeling, a feeling of community and neighbors? We would still have the burdens of our houses, of our tax bills, of our heating bills, of our maintenance costs, but we wouldn't have the benefit of renting out half of the house to bring in income. And that's one of the factors that the court has cited in not approving these variance changes. Quote, "It is not permissible to single out one lot located within what is essentially a residential district and impose restrictions upon this lot that are less onerous than those imposed upon the remaining portions of what is really the same district." That's, again, a Supreme Court decision, Whitmore versus Building Inspector of Falmouth, 1943. So they have not satisfied the legal test for this variance, so there's no legal basis to approve it. In addition, I'd like to point out the neighborhood issues that we have. Number one, they bought this home in 2017, this land and the home next door at 123. That land, that house at 123 Ingersoll Grove is the only non-conforming use on Ingersoll Grove. It was sold to them as an investment property. Every other home on that street is a single-family home. We are neighbors in a neighborhood. We all know each other. We support each other. We're friendly with each other. We have a neighborhood, and we want to maintain that feeling of a neighborhood. And this is what's bringing investment to McKnight. This is what makes this such a special neighborhood, because we're all people that care about the neighborhood. We come from every different background, every income level, but we are all united by one thing, which is we care about this very special historic neighborhood in our unique city of homes. We don't have an issue with him building a house in the neighborhood. We welcome neighbors, especially since he wants to start a family in the neighborhood. We would love to have a family in the neighborhood. But that doesn't mean that in order for him to live in the neighborhood, we have to have multiple investment properties encroaching in the neighborhood. Then what happens is the next person that buys a property in the neighborhood says, hey, I also want to turn my property into an income property. Your single-family community is then gone, because now you've allowed spot zoning with this property, and every other person will follow and want to do spot zoning. We've already lost so many houses on the non-local historic protected side of the community, which has been a tragedy for people who have lived here for 30, 40, 50 years and no longer have the neighborhood that they started with, because flippers have been able to come in, take off all the historic features, and turn houses into rental property thanks to the current market. Another issue that was mentioned is the housing market, that there's a housing crisis. The legislature addressed that by passing the new accessory dwelling unit law, so that, for example, he could have a relative or a cousin or a friend living in the house. That's a very limited law, though, that has very specific requirements as to the amount of square footage that is allowed to be added to the house. This would give him his option for some income without turning the house into a permanent two-family unit and change the permanent zoning of the neighborhood. This is the way that the legislature has decided it would address the housing crisis. The legislature did not decide, hey, we have a housing crisis, let's get rid of all our zoning laws and allow a free-for-all so anyone could put in duplexes or multifamily homes in a single-family neighborhood. As far as generational wealth goes, what about all the families that currently live in the neighborhood? They have an investment in the neighborhood as well. There are families that hope to pass their houses down to their kids, and what will they have if the family home becomes just an investment property in a sea of flipper homes? And the next thing that was mentioned was the fact that there is some infill of ranch homes in the neighborhood. This was done in the 40s and 50s. After the Great Depression and World War II, there was no historic district designation at that point. It was a free-for-all. Houses were being turned into boarding homes. Houses were being built on parcels of land in between other houses. And those existed prior to this zoning, prior to the historic district designation. So those are the exceptions to the rule. Same thing with the few multifamilies that were built in the neighborhood in the 20s and 30s. Just because there is one multifamily unit that was built in either the 1920s or 1930s doesn't mean that the other 50 houses on that side of the neighborhood should be disregarded because there was one non-conforming use that happened in a certain time period in between the establishment of the McKnight neighborhood and the establishment of our city's zoning laws and our city's historic districts. There's a reason we have zoning laws, which is because in the 40s and 50s, there was no control over most cities. People who owned their homes forever ended up having businesses parked next to their homes, ended up having boarding houses put next to their homes, and people lost their investments in their properties. We have these zoning regulations as protections for the people that invest here in the city of Springfield. And when we invest, we rely on those protections. Once those protections are taken away, it's literally taking the money out of our pockets, taking the investment out of our pockets, especially for some of us who have invested more in our houses than our houses are worth. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears have gone into these historic homes. Some of us can't sell the houses for the money we put in them because this is what they require. It's an absolute labor of love that a lot of people live in this neighborhood. So to take our investment away by turning the neighborhood into a commercial venture would be highly unfair and prejudicial to those of us who already live here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition this evening? Say again, anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Okay, sir, if you could come forward, please introduce yourself and state your name and address. Before you do, Councilor Whitfield, you have your hand up. Do you want to be heard now, or can you wait until we conclude for questions?
Definitely can wait until I got a whole speech in rebuttal to what the young lady attorney just said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Yes, sir. Please state your name and address.
My name's Tim Kirk. I live at 105 Ingersoll Grove. Lived there 32 years. I lived in McKnight 45 years. I would like to go on the record as being opposed to building of a multifamily home on this property. To begin with, it's spot zoning. They're using spot zoning to bypass the structure of the historical district. Now, I'll admit there's a lot of ranches and multifamilies that existed before the historic district was created. The historic district was created to protect the integrity of the Victorian neighborhood that we have, with the exceptions that were there pre-existing. Now, we do have a congestion problem. That corner is always congested. I don't see adding a house is going to help that at all. It's not that big a lot. It's not that deep. I don't know how they're going to build something on it. I have not seen the plan, so just my opinion. But I want to close with this. Spot zoning, once it starts, you're greenlighting it to happen everywhere. Once you bypass the historic district regulations, it's a whole can of worms you're opening up. I would like to point out, we're in a absolutely gorgeous room here that some architect designed for the long term. Our McKnight neighborhood was built by architects who wanted to build something beautiful for the long term. But one of the greatest things about our neighborhood is that we still have yards and grass and trees and space for that. We don't have houses shoehorned in between other houses. We do have some problems, but this is not going to help. So I would ask that the council vote against this, respect the historic district for what it is, and respect the neighbors who live there and try to make it better every day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Okay, good evening, sir. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Gray. I live at 120 Clarendon Street. I lived at 86 Baldwin Street for over 50 years, and I've lived in Springfield for over 70 years, and I have worked many years restoring a lot of these old, beautiful homes. And I take pride in the fact that we have a nice community there, and relatively quiet. I had 8 children myself, And they enjoyed it. We had a Tapley school there they could go to and stuff. It's all changed, but I would like to see the integrity of the historical single-family homes that were erected there, you know, over 100 years ago, and for a number of other reasons, I oppose this change of zoning. I am a builder, and I know all about it. I manufactured homes, and I just could say a lot more, but I'm going to leave it at that. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition tonight? Say again, is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Okay, seeing none, that'll close this portion of the hearing. We do have room for up to 10-minute rebuttal if anybody speaking in favor of the petitioner would like to come forward and speak. You don't have to, but if you'd like to respond to any of the things that were said, you have a chance to do so. Would you like to come forward? Okay, reset the clock.
Yeah, again, it's really not long, but I just wanted to say, they keep saying that we are coming here like we are some outside builders that are coming in here just going to take over the neighborhood. That's not our plan. When Brenton said that, you know, he needed more space, we realized that we had the land next door. I was not trying to set my son up for failure to have him just be in one of those huge houses over there and within, you know, with no help. So we're not some out-of-town visitor builder coming in here to take over anyone's neighborhood. I grew up in the McKnight neighborhood. I lived there. I grew up on Buckingham Street. I bought my first house on Marion Street. That's not what we're here to do. I love my city just as much as anyone else, and I do love the McKnight area. So that's my stance on that.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Is there anyone else speaking in favor of the petition who would like to be heard? No? Would you like to be heard? Okay. Okay, thank you. Say again, anyone wishing to be heard on behalf of the petitioner? Okay, seeing none, that'll close this portion of the hearing. Anybody in opposition who'd like to be heard before we close? Okay. Please step forward, sir. State your name and address for the record. Oh, sir, we have another speaker before you. Yeah. Sir, if you could put the microphone on, there's a little button with a face on it. That'll turn the mic on for you. There you go.
I would say that we worked 30 or 40 years ago to bring this into a national historical area and protect those houses and the homes and the families that live there. And thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, anyone else speaking in opposition? Mr. Howard? Name and address, please.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. President. Stephen Howard, 1104 Withington Street, here in Springfield. As has been stated, no one is opposed to the building of the home on this property. Nobody that I have spoken to is opposed to it. However, once the subject of zoning change comes in, you have a totally different reaction. The size of the home that's being proposed is smaller than where I reside. It's smaller than my abutting neighbors, than my neighbors across the street. Ms. Rao spoke. It's not as big as hers. All these homes are designated single family. To give a better perspective, our home has a basement, 3 floors, plus an attic that if you try to rent out that attic, the size of it, you could probably get maybe $2,000 a month for it. It's a single-family home. The home that's being proposed is probably half of our home. We're single family. So I don't see the need for the zoning to be changed. The fire department has complained about their difficulties in responding to emergencies in that immediate area because of the amount of parking that's there. Sometimes they're responding, they either have to go on foot to do whatever they got to do, then they got to back out because they can't turn because of the amount of parking. That's a hazard right there. Now, I understand that the petitioners say that they have parking, fine, even though it will be a musical chair kind of thing, whereby one car has to move for the other one to move, fine. That's up to them. In some places, like New York, a duplex simply means one apartment occupying 2 floors. That's not the law in Massachusetts. Now, you drive around, especially in the McKnight area, and you see a lot of burnt-out homes, which are not being built because of the expense in trying to rebuild based on the historically designated designation. There are homes in the McKnight area that are being held up by wooden planks because the residents, and some are elderly, some are retired, some are on fixed income, but that fixed income disqualifies them from having their homes repaired because their income is higher than the maximum allowed. As last year, when they had the home improvement, there were homes that are in bad need of repair, but because their income is higher, and some of the reasons why it's higher than the maximum is because, as was stated, housing shortages. So now instead of families going out and trying to get to live on their own, they can't, so they stay in this home. That raises the maximum income to exceed what the law says you could qualify for. So now families trying to stay together, they can't fix their homes because the income prohibits it. Now, let's say this city council was to say, later for the Supreme Court decisions, we're going to approve it. All right. We could actually convert our home to a 4-family. And believe me, we just may do that. Everybody else could say, well, I need to fix my house. I need my home to be a 3-family. That income will allow me the opportunity to get rid of those wooden planks holding up my porch and my house. Yeah, you know. Then you have what you call gentrification. Now, once these homes are no longer protected by that single family law, big money comes in, as happened in the house next to where I live that abuts us. It was the day of the signing of the house that it was learned by the seller that it was being purchased as like a halfway house. And it was utilized like that for over 2 years until the owner said, look, I'm not making any money, I'm gone. So it was bought. I don't want to say who bought it, but You know, a lot of people here know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to identify the person. But that was a big struggle. Springfield, one thing we learned after moving here was Springfield has the most amount of group homes in Massachusetts. The most amount. On the house where Ms. Rowe lives, before she moved in, a Chinese, it was being used by the Chinese, and you had about maybe 20, 30, we don't even know how many people actually living there.
Yep.
The house at the end of the corner was bought by someone who doesn't live in Springfield. Well, at least they don't live in the neighborhood. And that's a daycare center. In this particular area, you have maybe five group homes in this one area. Why? Because of the size of the homes. It's an investment. People are making money. And the people who are making the money, they don't even live there. They live out, some of them don't even live in Massachusetts. It's an investment property. And I'll end with this. In New York, you have what some people call row houses, some people call them attached. But it's a whole string of brownstones that are attached to each other. They had the law saying that you can't change the exterior, the outer exterior. Somebody said, you know what? We can't change the front, but we could do something with the back. So they extended the back. And then they say, you know what? We could go up. So now that house became 3 times the size. And they didn't even have to change the law. And what happened? Gentrification. People came in and started offering all kinds of ridiculous money to buy those properties. And the people who lived there all their lives and raised their families, they were now forced out because they couldn't afford the rent. Now Harlem in New York, you walk down Harlem, you hardly see any black people. Harlem is supposed to be the black capital, the mecca of America. You hardly see any black people walking on the street now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Okay, that'll conclude the opposition portion of the rebuttal and that portion of the hearing. Are there any counselors with questions for the applicant or the public? I'm going to go with Councilor Brown first. He had his hand up and is the ward counselor. Councilor Brown.
Yes, I have more of a, if I should wait, or is it appropriate for me to speak now?
You can speak now. The hearing's still open, so if you have questions for any speakers tonight, you can ask them. If you'd like to just make comment, you can also do that, or you could reserve it until after the questions are done.
Well, I'll just make my comment. Basically, I have talked to a lot of people in the area, and on this particular area, I'm familiar with, and I do know the area is a little skittish about houses where, because I dealt with the Dover Amendment back in the day. This is something completely different. It's really individuals in the area. I know I went out, I've talked to the abutters. The abutters are in support of it. From what I know, most of the abutters are in support. And when I reviewed it, it was really going to still be built in a way where it's going to still preserve a lot of the historic look. So that was a key. And then another thing was, the actual landlords, who was gonna be there. Well, how was it gonna be handled? And like the petitioners said, the actual individuals who they'll live right there. And I do know one of the tenants, some of the tenants and the people in the area, they're real well known, the petitioners, as far as community activists, as far as supporting youth in the community. So, my main thing was finding good landlords. So, I know as far as the son, the mother, I know the family, as far as the work that they do in the community, that that they are credible people, they are good people, and they do a lot of good work in the community for the youth. My main concern was really just making sure the living arrangements and things like that. And they answered it. They're going to be present. They're not going to be, they're not from Boston. They're not going to be around. This is something that I wouldn't normally say be okay. But based on who the family is and where it's at, the location where it's at, because there are other locations, two families around that location. I would lean to support this. There's even the individuals who talked out against it. Those would be the same. I would support them if they wanted to do it. They're credible and good individuals also. So, it really depends on the circumstances in this matter. And just venting it, I believe that as far as they do fit the need as being good landlords, being credible. They are willing to build it in a way where it's going to fulfill the historic, it's not going to mess up the actual eye appeal when it comes to the historic scenery. And I know that they are from the community. Not only are they from the community, they actually, they take time out to support the youth and the community around. But with that in mind, still, I do know the area. There have been issues when it came to boarding houses, but this isn't something that's like that. And it's been a nightmare for our area. So I do, my heart does go out. I do understand, the people who are opposing it. But I believe that giving these individuals a chance, I believe that they will do the right thing. I do believe that this will be a good thing for the area, giving people new chance to have new home ownership and housing. Because right now, a lot of people want to be able to live in the McKnight area, and they can't based on just the pricing of the housing in that area. This will give people an opportunity and also have the ability of supervision from an upstanding people in our community, because they're gonna be right next door. So this is something that I did vet. I talked to a lot of people. And like I said, the butters basically, a lot of butters said that they did support it. So this is, some of the neighborhood council people supported it. So this is something that I do myself would support. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Councilor Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to see if Phil is around.
Yep, one moment, he'll be right up.
Counselor?
Hi, Phil. I'm sorry I couldn't see at first. Can you tell me when the zone change for the area happened? What year?
Unlike the previous two zone changes that were before the city council, those were rezoned from Residence B to Residence A. This area was never Residence B, so there was no zone change to this area. So,
how were multifamilies able to be built in this area if it was Residence A before?
because they were built long before the zoning was in place. I believe the majority of those were built in the early 1900s. So they were in place prior to the zoning being there.
And there was a multifamily unit there before, right?
Yeah, and I actually tried to find a record from the building department on when that building was, I don't know what happened to it. I was not able to find a record of the house when it was either torn down or, the only record I was able to find is looking at the city property cards, which show that it's been a vacant lot since I think about 1985. So I don't know when.
I only asked that question, Phil, because I wanted to just mention that the multifamily fit, right?
Yeah,
It fit
yes,
on the land?
there was
Okay.
there was a two-family there prior.
Because I keep hearing things about it's not the correct size for it to fit a multifamily house. If you look at the drawing, it's one door and there'll be an entrance going to the second floor unit and an entrance going. So it doesn't look at all like a traditional duplex. So those are a couple of things, Phil, that I wanted to get answers and clarity on. And I feel like the planning board went along with some of these things because I don't know for whatever reason, but there's a few things I want to point out. Without all the legal things that were said, there were things said about building generational wealth. And if you never had to live that life, you wouldn't understand why people would want to build generational wealth. But I do. I understand that very clearly. It's never been a struggle for some. That's privilege. But it's always been a struggle for others. People should not be penalized because they want to have investments to better their living situation for them and their families in the future. In fact, it should be shame on anyone who don't. So just because the multifamily is built in this neighborhood, anyone else that wants to build a multifamily can in another neighborhood if there's no more property in this particular neighborhood. But to scorn someone and say, we have these bills, so what about us? Totally was irrelevant and, in my opinion, unprofessional, because we should be encouraging our young people to grow and build and be able to afford what they have so homes don't go into foreclosure, so they're not losing their property, so they are building and investing and building generational wealth for their children. Because for people that are not people of color, they've always been taught that. And now we're teaching our children and our families the same exact things that was not afforded to us for many, many years and getting scolded because of it. No, I didn't like that at all. I didn't like that at all. That's totally unfair to say. That's totally unfair to even think. We should be saying, if you're not looking at investments, well, then maybe you should be. Brendan has a business in the city of Springfield. He has been living in that property for some time now and taking very good care of it. No disturbances are coming from these tenants. Regina Tillery and her parents have lived in the city of Springfield their whole lives. And I went through this myself as a property developer with individuals coming into really my community because I grew up in the McKnight neighborhood. So 50 years, this has been my community. But when houses are taken for recidivism and other, I mean, is it recidivism? Maybe. But they're taken because people can't afford to fix their properties, or, and then you have receivership, that's the word, taken for receivership, and then they're sold at very low prices to people that's not from our neighborhood. Nobody is raising a word about the wrongness and the things that's going on in the community. And they're sold from people that don't traditionally look like us, that didn't grow up in the neighborhood when I was living there, for really, really, really low prices, really low prices. They've been getting these big Victorian homes, and that's the reason that they moved to the neighborhood in the first place, because the homes are beautiful and they're big and Victorian and all these things. And yes, they may be expensive to heat and they may be expensive to repair at some point, but this is what people chose to live in because they bought these properties at very low prices. I grew up in the neighborhood. I knew what was there. I knew who lived there. I knew my neighbors, and I knew the neighborhood that I come from. So we should not place blame for someone wanting to better their financial stability. We should not do that. And that's shame. That's a shame. Okay. And there was a comment about renting to an attic. It has to be an attic apartment still to rent from it. It has to still be zoned appropriately from rent to rent from it. Can't just go in there and do that. So it'll be the same type of situation. I just wanted to address some of those things because they really hit sore spots. I went through this not even a month ago where people came into the community that we grew up in and then trying to tell us what we can and cannot do in the community that I grew up in. Born and raised here in the city of Springfield, grew up in McKnight most of my life. And I just think this is like totally wrong. So with that, I'm going to conclude my comments until we get into the debate portion of the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Are there any other councilors, while we still have the hearing open, that would like to ask questions for the applicant or anybody present today? Councilor Allen?
Thanks, Mr. President. I'd like to ask Phil Dromey to come back up and talk to us about the accessory zoning law that he mentioned before, or somebody mentioned before. And, you know, what is that going to mean? What is the status of that? What's the timing of that, please?
Well, the state legislature just recently passed a new law that allows accessory dwelling units by right in the state of Massachusetts for single-family zoning districts. So we're actually in the process of drafting some zoning requirements for how that would work. That's actually going to come before the city council at the end of January because the law itself goes into effect in February. It is limited to single-family zoned areas, and they are limited in size. It wouldn't be a typical two-family, but you would be allowed a 900 square foot, at the largest, a 900 square foot accessory dwelling unit for a structure, either in the principal dwelling, or if you have a big enough piece of land, you could theoretically build a tiny house behind it. You would have to meet the setbacks and, you know, the zoning requirements, but, you know, I'm not sure this lot could do it, but, you know, if you have a large lot and 16 acres, you may be able to put one in there. An example is if you have an attached garage, you could theoretically turn that into a dwelling unit now. So the law is pretty straightforward about what the city can do to regulate these. You cannot require them to get a special permit, so they're all going to be allowed by right. But again, there are going to be some underlying guidelines that will, I think we're going to try and have them be required to submit an administrative site plan review, which would at least review the underlying zoning. But so again, theoretically, if this were not to pass tonight, they could build a house with an accessory dwelling unit on it that would provide them an additional rental unit at this location.
Thank you. May I? When that occurs 3 months from now, if that, well, is it just state law that we're just going to pass something and just that it's in effect in Springfield with that? Or are we going to do our own version of it or something?
Well, again, what I've drafted is some basic kind of legislation or zoning requirements, but they're extremely limited. The law that was passed specifically, you know, a lot of towns surrounding Springfield already have accessory dwelling units allowed, but it's, you know, you have to be an owner occupant. You know, there's a number of requirements in order to get an accessory dwelling unit. Those requirements were all wiped out with this new legislation. So it's basically, I don't even have to live there. I can have a single family house, put an accessory dwelling unit and rent both units. So there is no more owner occupancy requirement. So again, to me, I kind of refer it to which, you know, nobody likes the Dover Amendment. That was passed. It's a state law that trumps the zoning. It's part of the zoning legislation that says group homes and churches and schools can kind of go where they want to. This law that was passed for accessory dwelling units now opens the door for people to put accessory dwelling units into their, which again, I think, you know, looking from the housing point of view, you know, there's a lot of housing advocates that think this is a great thing. I don't know how it'll affect it. You know, I think Somebody making an accessory dwelling unit into an existing housing is certainly going to be expensive, so I don't know if everybody's going to run out and do this. I don't know, but we are working on at least putting in a basic round of zoning requirements that would trigger if you wanted to do an accessory dwelling unit. But if they were to move forward with a single-family house, they certainly could build it as part of the construction.
Logistically, is that going to be changes to our zoning ordinance? It'll be plunked in the zoning ordinance?
It'll be in the zoning ordinance.
All right, thank you for that. It's interesting, for sure.
Thank you, Counselor Allen. Any other counselors with questions or comments? Or questions for the public, rather? Counselor Davila?
Thank you. I have a question for the proponent, Mr. Jenkins, I think.
Okay, sir, would you mind please coming
Yeah.
forward? And when you get up there, please put the microphone on.
Good evening, sir. My apologies, I cannot look at you. I got to talk to the microphone. But first of all, I think that the rendition that you showed us is absolutely beautiful. It looks like truly a beautiful house. However, I do have some questions. I want to make sure that I understood you correctly. What is, your main purpose of wanting to build this house is twofold, correct? One, you want to live on it. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Two, it's going to be an investment property for you.
I wouldn't say an investment property. We do have family members that are in search of housing as well, that need units to live in as well. Me leaving the 123 property would open up a property for, a space for them to move into 123, as
Family.
well as the new property that we're talking about next door too. So it's not necessarily an investment property. The additional unit, I would say, is to help me continue to pay the bills and things like that. That's what I would say.
I just want to make sure Mr. Jenkins, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So are you saying that the main purpose is for family to live in the entire dwelling?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Are you saying that the purpose of this house is to have family live on both units?
Yes.
Now, let me,
Yeah, I would be living in the new, I live in 123 right now. I'd be moving next door if that house property gets built. Yes.
you envision for this to be 2 floors, correct? One up
Yes.
and down.
Yes.
And you're saying that one of those floors is going to be a family member, correct?
Yes.
Now, I know for a fact, now, there's nothing wrong with investment, don't get me wrong. Good for you. I hope you tenfold what you hope you get. But you did use the word investment at least 3 times. When you were speaking, you used the word investment. Now you seem to be saying something differently. What is it?
I mean, I'm trying to remember the context about which I spoke about it being an investment property, but I think it, I ultimately just mean that it's a property that'll also help me keep the property paid. It's a unit that would be able to, help me contribute to paying the mortgage, and.
I got you. There's nothing
Yes.
wrong with that, Mr. Jenkins.
Yes.
I totally follow you, but my duty, go ahead.
Yeah, just to answer your question, I mean, our immediate needs is to have family members move in there.
Gotcha.
Myself as well. I mean.
But let's not kid ourselves. It's also
Yeah.
an investment. It's
Yeah.
okay to say that. It's going to be, let's not be naive about it, right? It's going to be an investment. So I guess, as I sit here, I'm kind of like, because we do have a housing crisis in Springfield, and we do want to build, right? But it has to fit. It has to make sense. And so let me tell you at least where my mind is. So I'm sitting here, and I'm thinking to myself, if I were to live in this neighborhood, who's going to say to me that in 15 years or so, you're going to say, well, I'm going to sell this property to the highest bidder, which is the way it works, and we're going to end up with another group home there. Right? I mean, let's be realistic.
Is that
That's a question, because I know at least 3 groups in the area, and there could be up to 5. I believe somebody said 5.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just trying to project ahead of time, because whatever you build now is going to be there secularum for a long time. So we need to get this right now. So I'm just trying to get a feel to where your mind is. What's going to guarantee me if I live there that, you are going to, that's going to fall into, I don't want to say the wrong hands, but to a use that is not consistent with the wish of the neighbors.
Yeah, my answer to that, I would have to say that's not our goal. Our goal is to enhance the property that we already own and so forth. I know I got it. A few people, have mentioned already, like, why don't you just restore another home, or why don't you, grab property somewhere else? This is the property that we have, that we own right now.
Right.
We're looking to expand on that in a way that will provide me generational wealth, a pathway towards generational wealth. You
Right.
said there's nothing wrong with, using the word investment and so
Right.
forth. I think there's nothing also wrong with, developing property in a way that will lead me towards a pathway to generational wealth as well. So
No, there's not.
And just to answer your question about what happens in 15 years and so forth, it's tough for me to speak to exactly where I will be at or the world will be at in 15 years, where the current state of the economy, the housing market will be at in 15 years. But, that's not our goal. Our goal right now is to expand, give me an additional space to spread my wings, start a family, continue to grow my business, while we also have the property next door.
No, I hear you, and I do wish you the best success. I hope you get tons of generational wealth, tons of revenue. I really do. But I'm going to be honest with you, I'm struggling with this decision right now, sir. I'm really struggling with it. Mainly because this is an absolutely gorgeous area. I'm looking at it, and I know the area well, actually. Mr. President, if I may, to the Madam Chair, do we have any, I have not heard anything about the neighborhood council. Do we have any communication from them?
We do. We received a letter from the neighborhood council president indicating that there was a 4-4 vote.
So they're split.
On this question.
So
Yes.
there's a polarizing issue even for them. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor
Thank you,
Dowd.
Mr. Jenkins.
Councilor Delgado.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I'm hearing the testimony in here, one, the McKnight neighborhood is a beautiful neighborhood, as been mentioned, and the quality of the homes is a factor for folks wanting to move in, right, and keep the integrity of that. So I can appreciate that piece of it. I'm also a little kind of split on it, because on one end, I see the concern, but I also, after hearing Phil speak, and particularly around the additional dwelling units, there's nothing really different from a Residence B and an additional dwelling unit in terms of more folks living there. I guess, Phil, can you come back out there? The technicality of a Residence B versus ADU, there's still going to be the potential for them to build an additional unit, whether you consider it a Res B multi-unit or an ADU. It's still something designed for other people to live in.
Yeah, I mean, the only big difference to me is the size. I mean, an ADU, you could only have 900 square feet. A two-family could be bigger. I'm not saying it would be, but a two-family could certainly be bigger. But the accessory dwelling units are going to be limited in the size you can do.
And there's nothing that we at the moment, once the ADU thing kind of goes through, there's nothing we can really do to limit anybody really.
No.
Okay, so I guess my question to you guys, have you guys considered the ADU route?
They talked about the ADU. First we heard about it was at the McKnight Council. The only thing is they were limited to only a certain amount of square feet. And for the houses, the sizes that they already have over there, we limit that to 900 square feet. We're not even going to be in the size of the houses that are already there. So to me, I understand it, but the houses over there are already bigger than that ADU.
They're massive, and there's nothing that would, even if it was a single family, you could still build
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, the accessory dwelling unit is the one limited in size. The size of the single-family house can be whatever size the zoning allows. So you could have a 3-story Victorian single-family house with a 900-square-foot accessory dwelling unit somewhere in there. So it's not saying you could only build a 900-square-foot house. It's the accessory dwelling unit that would be attached to that house.
So it can be as big as every other house there?
Oh, absolutely.
And still have an additional 900
Yes.
square feet, as long as the space permits?
Yeah, as long as you meet the underlying zoning requirements, but yes. So again, I just want to be clear that the house doesn't have to be 900 square feet, it's the
No,
accessory dwelling.
the way I'm looking at it is, regardless, there's still an opportunity for them to have people living, whether we change Residence B or not. You still
Yes.
have the opportunity to have more people. So the concerns about congestion or concerns about other things, there's still an opportunity, and there's not going to be anything we can do because of Massachusetts state law.
Correct, except for the size limitation.
Except for the size. Okay. Thank you.
Are you done, Counselor Delgado? Okay, Counselor Govan. Put your,
I motion for us to move on.
okay.
Motion to close the hearing.
Okay,
I have
so
a question.
Okay, so there is a motion to close the hearing made by Counselor Govan. Is there a second
It's
to
actually for
that?
you, Phil.
Is there a second to Counselor Govan's motion to close the hearing?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Counselor Govan and seconded by Counselor Bruce. Normally, we would close the hearing after everybody's exhausted their questions. I probably had too much of a pause between saying exhausted and their questions there. Maybe both. But because there's a motion on the floor, do counselors want to dispose of that motion now? It's not a motion to move the question, which would cease debate. So you can still debate on the motion, but Counselor Govan's asked that we close the hearing, and it's been properly seconded. So are there any objections to us proceeding to a vote on that motion?
I'm not for it.
I'm not for it.
Okay, so we might be opposed to the motion, but is there any opposition to us voting on the motion now?
Well, I think you have to vote on a motion once it's
Yeah,
made and
regardless.
seconded.
We do, but I guess what I'm saying is if I don't call for the motion to be voted on now, we could go around and around for another 6 speakers, and it kind of just defeats the point of Counselor Govan's
I just
motion.
want to. if I
Yes,
may.
Counselor Davila.
Thank you. I guess what I want to say is, as part of the discussion of the motion, is that I still have some questions, and I think there's more questions on the floor. I mean, we have to dispose of the motion one way or the other, but I'm just saying, it will seem to me that just more people have questions. I want to get out of here too, but I'm not ready. I have questions.
Okay, and Counselor Walsh, I know that you have some questions, but are you okay with us voting on the motion now? Okay, we're gonna call the roll on the motion, Madam Clerk, and if the
I
if
could
the
withdraw the motion.
Okay, Counselor Govan has withdrawn her motion. Okay, Counselor Walsh.
I wanted to ask Phil Dromey about this new law, because what we're talking about here tonight is a proposal for a two-family home, correct?
Correct.
In a historic district, correct?
Well, the larger issue is it's a 2-family house in a single-family zoned district that happens to be in a historic district.
Okay, and the new state law would allow an accessory unit, you called it?
An accessory dwelling unit,
But it would have to be a single-family home, correct?
correct.
Okay, so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I was clear on that. The accessory dwelling unit law only applies to single-family houses. So you can't have a 3-family house and throw on another unit.
And I would just like to say that, like many of my colleagues tonight, I am really troubled. I mean, I am very troubled by, I want to support a mother and son, but I don't think I can support spot zoning. And why don't you just wait to the new law and put up your house?
Is that a question, Counselor Walsh?
Yeah.
Okay, would you like to respond to that? The petitioner?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? Why don't we just wait until the...
You're in a very precarious position, I think, wanting to put in a two-family house in a single-family historic residence. And the new law might give you the opportunity to do what you need to do for your family. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Just turn the microphone.
With the ADU is what you're referring to.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's definitely a route that we're gonna continue to look into if we're not passed, but our initial goal is to get it rezoned from A to B. So yeah, that is something we're gonna continue to look into, but we're here on the petition to get the zone rezoned from A to B.
Right. And,
And actually, I don't think they even know what they're going to be doing with that. So now here we are, just waiting for, I guess, the zoning board or the city to come up with a plan that may or may not allow us to do it even then. So I don't know.
well, the state law supersedes, city policy, so it is pretty clear that you'll have an opportunity once that's passed. So this is a difficult decision.
Thank you, Councilor Walsh. Councilor Govan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now I will make some comments. I'm reading over, first of all, I know the Jenkins family, and I know that they are invested in our community. They're business owners, they're homeowners. The young man is a business owner, entrepreneur. And one of the letters of support that we got, it says that in that neighborhood, there's a house being used as a bread and breakfast, 3 houses down on Ingersoll Drive. There's an apartment building 1 lot away from the property where Ms. Jenkins is petitioning to build. And there's a group home across the street from me. This was on Florida Street. So her question is, how's the zoning for a duplex taking away from an area that always has so many exceptions? And I'm aware that those probably happened prior to, the zoning in this city. But this, to me, feels like, like Council Whitfield said, and I'm going to say it, Black people, right, in this country, 100 years ago when this neighborhood was implemented, Black people weren't allowed to own land or property or houses at the time. Our veterans, Black and brown veterans, came back from World War II, from Vietnam, and they weren't able to use their GI Bill to buy houses or to go to school like the GI Bill was supposed to do because they were Black. So here we are today in 2024, and Ms. Harrison says it. She said this, denying this possibility echoes decades of denying Black families to buy houses wherever they want. And here we are telling this family that they shouldn't build the house that they want to build. That looks very historic to me, right? And they don't have to make it look historic because I don't think that that's a requirement. I think they're doing that because they want to be in line with the neighborhood, which makes a lot of sense to me. And I think that, as a council, we need to be thinking about how we're treating our residents, right? We talked about people losing their homes because maybe they can't afford to pay their property taxes. They can't afford to fix the houses up, especially in these neighborhoods with the big houses, the big Victorian houses. People don't build houses that big anymore. They don't have 10 and 12 kids anymore, right? At most, they might have 2 or 3. A duplex like this, did you say you're gonna have more kids, Ms. Walsh? Were you gonna have more kids?
Well,
She said, except for me, right?
since Danny's not here, I don't think that will happen.
Well, a long time ago, you had more than 5 kids, right? You had more than, that was a long time ago. Except for our good friend, I love her, she's got like 10 kids, but that's neither here nor there. But that's not the way to go, I think, nowadays, right? People are having smaller families, so these big houses do not need to be built. So I think I'm going to agree with the ward counselor that, the citizens council the neighborhood council president thought it was a good idea. 3 others thought it was good, 4 didn't. Sadly, the vote didn't pass. But I just think that we should give this family an opportunity to do what a lot of other people have had the privilege of doing in this country for a long time, and, you know, allow them to build the house that they want, the house that they need at this time, because they didn't just decide to build it just because they wanted to have income, right? They want to build a house so that they could give it to their son, so that he could have a house and maybe raise his family. Rent, if he wants to rent it to a stranger, that's up to him, as long as he's going to take care of it, right? We shouldn't be telling him what kind of income he's going to make either, you know? So I don't know, I'm feeling really disappointed to a degree, by the back and forth, and by how, you know, we might want to tell them, oh, well, wait till February and then you can do whatever you want to do. But they can't, because then they would have to build a one-family house, because it has to be a one-family house, and then the ADU dwelling. So I think that we need to vote in favor of this today and allow, you know, this family who has been in Springfield their entire lives, and who seem to continue to want to stay in Springfield for the rest of their lives, and then the next generation, to allow them to do what it is that they need to do and that they want to do. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Govan. Councilor Click Bruce.
Thank you, Council President. So again, I guess I'm going to echo what Councilor Govan just said. The council, the city council of the ward was in support of this, so I'm actually going to support this. Also, Walter Crow, who's the president of the neighborhood council, is in support of it, and it's a 4-4 vote, so it's a split. I know that Jenkins, as a family, want to commend the son for standing up and speaking before us and holding your ground. That is commendable, and respect that you get from me. Yes, the neighborhood is a historical, and I do take in consideration how they're feeling. I don't want to discard anyone's feelings. And I just want to make it known I support this project, and I'm looking to vote in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Click Bruce. Councilor Brown, then Councilor Whitfield, then Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. Phil, are you still around? Can I ask you a question?
Counselor?
The previous, they had a 2-family on the plot already, right? On that spot already, correct?
Yes, according to the records that I could find, there was a 2-family there. I don't know when it was demolished.
Okay. And that's all. That's all I had to ask. So just really, even that fact, I don't think, like, I've been in the area my whole life, and like Phil explained, that there was already a 2-family there. So it's not like they're re-changing. If it wasn't a 2-family there before, it'd be a little different. The actual area itself already had a 2-family on it. I didn't really want to get into the actual laws in the house, but just even based on the laws, they're going to be able to do it anyways. You know, I really believe that this is something we should support this project. Believe me, I know a few of the people who are opposing. You know, I believe once they, you know, give this family a chance and time, get out and keep coming by and meeting them and seeing what's going on, I believe that they'll be happy, you know, because on both sides, everyone are great people. But like I said, it was already one there. So all they're doing is a family that's been in the community. They're not going anywhere in 14 years. They're not going anywhere in 20 years. They're going to be there and if they go anywhere, they'll still, even the actual family member because I'm really familiar with the area over there. So even a family member who they're looking to to rent out there. He's a youth football coach who coaches all the kids in the community. They're real, all they do is work with kids and in the community. So, a lot of times people have issues with security over there and the dingo and things like that. I think this will be a breath of fresh air, having a positive impact with, good neighbors who can keep a good eye out. And, a lot of people like to do a lot of repairs over there and things. So I believe that this will be a good thing for the community. And I do support it because it was already something there just like it. So it's not like we're redoing anything. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Councilor Whitfield.
Mr. President, I'm going to yield to Councilor Perez because she hasn't spoken yet, and then I will go after her. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Perez.
As I sit here, the type of job that I do, I always, every day I say, I have family that has the means to develop a house that are living right now in hotels. And we have not given it the chance since I became city council, and I see all those developers coming in, and we go around to give to these developers the chance to develop units regardless of what the zoning is. If we have to change it, we change it. I see families here that are leaving the city because the high rate of taxes, because they cannot make it. And I see families that have been here, and it's unfair for them having to wait. Regardless we like it or not, the population is growing. And what has passed in the state is because the need of housing. Why are we sitting here going around and limiting our own people that live in this city, that had invested in this city, giving them a hard time when we don't do with the people that comes that doesn't live in the city, doesn't care about the city? So you know what? I'll be voting in support. My own son had to leave Springfield because he was not given a chance to be a homeowner. I have to have my grandkids live in another place, go visit them because he didn't have that opportunity. So based on the facts that I'm presenting, I'm going to vote in favor of this project. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Perez. Councilor Whitfield.
Councilor Perez took the words right out of my mouth. We have developers. We just had Davenport, and we didn't go around this amount of times, and they're rich. They develop a lot of properties around here. We didn't go around this many times. We always, when we get new Black developers or developers of color overall, we have to go through this song and dance, and it's very, very exhausting, okay? As a Black woman, as a developer myself, that had to go through this same exact process that's very expensive, it's completely exhausting. There is a housing crisis. We have homeless people in the city of Springfield that would love to live in a brand new 2-family home that they're gonna care about. We just built one for my daughter. She's the owner occupied. She has a tenant that's wonderful. And they only wanted this home so she could get her children back. And would I say, oh no, she wants to get her children back, I'm not gonna give her a chance because whatever reason her children was taken, but she is trying and she is striving to get her children back, and I'm gonna help her. She's a Latino lady. They work hard all night, work hard, and all they needed was a chance. But we be so caught up in our own selfishness that we don't even want to give people a chance. And that is sad. Is Brendan still at the podium? And can Focus Springfield let me see who I'm talking to, please?
I'm here.
Instead of hiding it with my own face. Brendan, say the word investment.
Investment.
Say the word investment again loud.
Investment.
Thank you. Because every home that is purchased is an investment. You don't purchase a home for no reason. You're investing in yourself. So investment is not a bad word. I own a single family home, and it's an investment for me because when I sell it, I will have equity to do other things. We don't get up here and say, So how long do you plan to live there to other people? We don't get up here and say, well, what if you sell it and it becomes a group home to other people? We cannot guarantee what people are going to do once they build or buy or live in a home. You can live in a home for 3 years and then there's a bunch of gun violence in the community that you live in that's not being addressed. So you decide you want to leave and bring your family to a safer area. We cannot predict what people are going to do with their homes in the future, and that is not part of the process of a zone change. It should be an investment. We should be encouraging our young people to invest in themselves right now. He wants income so he doesn't lose his home in the future if COVID happens again, if things shut down and you still got a mortgage to pay. The same exact reason that I wouldn't do anything less than put my daughter in a multifamily unit, because I've seen it. I've almost lost my home if it wasn't for programs that Wayfinder provide to help me save my home when we were in a recession before. We should be encouraging this type of behavior, but instead we sit here and ask questions like, is this an investment? Everything's an investment if you're doing it properly. So I am proud of this young man and his family for investing in himself. Do I respect what the people of the neighborhood has to say? Yes, I do. Very much so. But if this had not been a multifamily home before, if this residential neighborhood was completely residential and there wasn't group homes and there wasn't multifamily homes and there wasn't all these things that already exist, daycares and whatever else already exist in this neighborhood, then maybe my opinion would be a bit different. But Davenport was just here and we probably didn't have one question for them. But small developers like us, we always get over scrutinized every single solitary time. Like we don't know how to be good landlords. Like we don't try our best to pick the best people to live in our homes. Like we're just super destructive. That's not the type of people that we are. And I wish the biases and the racist tendencies and ways and the structural and all these things that exist that we know exist would disappear. And then we would have more peace, more harmony, we'll live in unity much better, because as long as Brendan has been in that property and as long as Regina has owned it, there has not been an incident. There's not been an incident. And the property right next door is a multifamily home. So yes, it is an investment property. And the one next to it is an investment property. And there's people that live in a single family home that's not the owners, because I looked that up. So let's do our research and let's be fair and let's be equitable when we're asking these questions. And if we're going to do it for one, then let's do it for every single zone change petition that comes up to the floor, because I never hear it until it's a petitioner of color. I never hear it to this extent, and it's sickening to me. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Davila, followed by Councilor Santinella.
No objections. Councilor Santinella has spoken. If you don't mind, go off.
Councilor Santinella.
Yeah, I concur with the remarks that were just made by my colleague. If you buy a house, a single-family house, and your family's in it, and the house burns to the ground, you've lost your investment. It's an investment. No matter how you look at it, that word is an investment across the board. And the second thing that I was interested in today at the hearing was that there was a two-family home on that property before. It was on that property before, so this isn't breaking precedent. It was there before. I'm going to support this.
Thank you, Councilor Santinella. Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to ask Phil a quick question, just so my own clarity before we vote. Phil. So I just want to be clear. So you mentioned there was a two-family home there before. You don't know when it was where they're proposing. You don't know when it was demolished, but do you know when it was approved back then, roughly?
When it was built?
No, when it was approved, the zone change back then. You said that you didn't know when it was demolished.
Well, there was no zone change in this area. This area has been Residence A as far as I can find looking back.
So in the proposed location, there has never been a house built?
Well, no, the houses that are over there that were built that are multifamily were constructed before zoning was even in place.
Right.
The house that's no longer there, that was a two-family and I think has been vacant since 1985, was built, I think in 1895 or 1890 is when that was constructed.
Okay.
When it was demolished, I don't know. The same
I
with
see.
the three-family at 123, those were all built
Okay, and so.
prior to zoning.
And so the apartment complex there on the corner that was built, approved when?
I
Is it
believe that was
multifamily?
built in 1930s.
Back then, okay, I got you. And so, okay, so, okay. Thank you, Phil. Thank you. Mr. President, I'm gonna finish up with two comments on this. First, it will appear to me, sir, that it has become clear, and I really don't know how to go about this or if it's even possible. I am excited that there's a lot of developers coming up. And even more excited that more, I'm going to call it non-traditional developers are coming up. Good. I hope we have many of them. I hope many of them become multimillionaires. I really hope so, particularly if they look like us. With that being said, I do think that we need to start developing some sort of, what's the word I want to use, some sort of guidelines, something, because I can think, as I stand here talking now, of two different occasions in which people have proposed similar projects and they've been turned down in different parts of the city. So it seems to me, although I realize that every neighborhood is different, I get it, totally get it. But I think we need to have some sort of a common guideline when we start talking about developing multifamily houses, duplex, and things like this, so that we all have some sort of a similar north to look at. With that being said, I'm going to close with this. It has been an extremely productive back and forth. And I do want to say that when we start talking about investment, as you recall, Mr. President, I did say very clearly, there's nothing wrong with the word investment. In fact, I did say that I hope your investment increases and that the Lord gives you 10 times what you're looking for now. I really hope so. But I will tell you this. If your investment goes up at the cost of my investment going down, we have a problem. We have a big problem in your hands. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what language, what planet you come from. We have a problem. If the investment of these people sitting here goes down, because the property is not being fulfilled to what the vision is, we have a problem. Simple as that. I'm just putting that out there to make that very clearly, just in case anybody here or remotely have any questions or any kind of wrong impression. If my investments go down, we have a problem. Simple. I don't know the family. I don't know Mr. Jenkins. It seems to me at this ADU, they could wait 3 months. I don't know. I'm not even going to get into that because I don't know his business mentality. I don't know what he's thinking. I do know that my mother used to say that good things happen to those that wait. But I just want to set the record straight just in case anybody has any kind of misformed thoughts in their mind. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt on this. I'm going to vote in favor of it. Just to give them the benefit of the doubt. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. Councilor Allen.
Thanks, Mr. President. Could I get both Phil and Ken Shea, please? I don't know who's the right one to answer the questions, but Phil's been answering them all night, but I want to ask Ken for a legal opinion. The first thing is, I just want to verify that we declined, or we were leaning towards declining a similar motion in Hungry Hill a month ago or so.
Right.
An attempt to change zoning from single to two-family. And there was so much opposition that they withdrew. That was my understanding. I was opposed, I know that. So I'm looking at the consistency thing and our role as counselors on consistency and upholding, you know, kind of the rule of law, if you will, or whatever the right term is. Ken, I wonder if you could give a definition of spot zoning.
Well, spot zoning has been defined by Massachusetts state courts. The Mass Appeals Court actually was a case involving Springfield, was Rensselaer versus the city of Springfield. And they defined spot zoning as being a case in which one owner is treated differently than the surrounding lot owners. That was the definition used in that case. So under the fact pattern that's here, you've got one lot owner that's being asked to be treated differently than the surrounding lot owners.
Okay, thank you.
So, may I ask a question?
Sure.
So, listening to your, thank you, Mr. President. Attorney Shea, listening to your definition, if this is seen as spot zoning, and if it passes, what happens? I mean.
Well, spot zoning is something that ultimately has to be decided by a court, not decided by the council. So if the council were to not pass this and someone wanted to take it to court, they'd have to go to court, and their argument or case would be that the city council in authorizing this exercised spot zoning. The court would then take in all the fact patterns that were presented by the parties and make a determination as to whether the court believed that the definition or the standard raised under the definition of the law of Massachusetts had been met, and the case would go however the judge decided.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So it is a tricky one. Thank you, Attorney Shea.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Walsh. Councilor Whitfield.
So I want to thank the council for doing the spot zoning zone change for when my son came to the city council and we had the same type of opposition. Although they didn't show up, there were some letters and some things that took place. So we did some approvals of spot zone changes as well, because we only bringing up the fact that we denied some, we have approved some also. Another thing is, yes, good things come to those who wait, but not necessarily in the development field, because the cost of material and even contractors and others that have to develop the property can increase at any given moment. So the sooner that you get your back end stuff in order and start developing, the better. The fact that we have people that have to move out of the city just to have a place to live is very discouraging. Councilor Perez's son had to move to find a place for his family when he could have been right here, because we are in a housing crisis. If these things aren't resonating, I don't know what will. Materials go up all the time. It's very difficult for a developer. Not to mention, it's just difficult to do work in Springfield overall. It's a very expensive, hard process. It's about almost $3,500 just to do a zone change, because you gotta advertise for the zone change to go to the planning board. You have to advertise for it to come to the city council. You got to pay this fee and that fee and that fee. And then like doing business in other communities is so much easier. Like, I understand why people want to do work outside the city. And I didn't understand that before I became a developer myself. So why are we pushing people away from the city of Springfield? And I'm going to just reiterate for the record, Regina Tillery Jenkins owns multiple properties in the city of Springfield where she takes very good care. She will go out, and I know this because one of my best friends live in one of her properties, and she will go out and put that trash out and fix the things that need to be fixed. If my friend is injured or just can't do it, they do it. They go over there and do that. Landlords don't have to do that, but she does it. And she gives chances to people that's struggling, because we all have struggles in our lives. We are not going to sit here and act like we don't. Ingersoll Grove and McKnight neighborhood is beautiful, but it has its struggles too. You see all those houses that got the poles holding them up? Well, you guys need to know that there is funding from the CPA coming along where you can get historic homes fixed. So if you can't afford it, you can do that. But there are so many factors that go into why the zone change needs to be done now instead of waiting for the ancillary unit to come along. So what if they build an even bigger single family home and then put an ancillary that's still 2 properties, more families? I mean, what is the issue here? Except they might not have enough parking because now you got a single family and an ancillary unit. There's not enough place to put parking. So now there's more cars on the street. But in this design, there's parking that wasn't there before. So we want to wait for that. We want to see what really comes into place once that law is changed. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me at all. And to say, if my property value goes down because you built something is an insult, because they have been nothing but stellar landlords in the city of Springfield. This isn't their first property, but you have never heard them being called out for any misconduct in the city of Springfield. They take care of their properties, and they're bringing back investments to the city of Springfield where others sit around and watch it happen and say things like, what about me? Everybody can stand up and take a stance and do something if they put their minds to it and their hearts to it. And these people are putting their minds and their hearts to it, and they deserve this chance without all this other stuff that's going along. What if 3 months pass and the ancillary thing isn't settled yet? Now they have to wait again. None of this is making good sense to me, except because there's another person of color standing before us. We have to ask every question under the sun to make sure we're doing the right thing. But others come along and we don't do this. But I promise you, going forward, we will. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Brown, and maybe if that's okay, we'll give him the last word here. Councilor Brown, go ahead. It's your district.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really thank all my colleagues for their input, and I definitely respect all their input. And I also respect everyone who came to speak out. In this particular matter, even when you're talking about the legal matters, we really have to keep into consideration, even like my colleague Councilor Allen had mentioned with the past petitioner. This really isn't something new. This property was a 2-family all the way up until 85. So this is really something that's just replacing something that was already an existing structure, and it wasn't zoned properly in order to replace it accordingly. So as far as that, I wouldn't really think that would be something difficult in a court of law to kind of like explain, because there was a 2-family not long ago. So it's really not going to impact the community in a way. I don't see it doing so. So with that being said, I once again, even with the house things, unfortunately, even if you were against it, it's something that you couldn't do anything against anyways, based on the laws that are coming down, from the House. So, really, it's kind of a moot point to kind of be against it because once the laws change, it can be done anyways. And once again, like I said, it's just I would look at this as just a replacement of a pre-existing structure that was already a two-family. So it was already set up for and all it would be is replacing it. Something that, like I said, just as early as the 85. So that's why this is something that I was leaning toward because it was now just beautifying it, making it more modern, but still replacing it, keeping that historic value of a two-family being there, but making it more, something newer. So it is something that had already been there. So that's why I still, once again, say it is something that would be okay, and I would support. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Brown. Seeing no other counselors with any comments, or Counselor Davila?
Thank you, Mr. President. I was not going to make comment, but I'm just going to restate that my call for us to develop something that we are to use as a north. I don't know what that looks like. Because after all, sir, I think that one, discouraging people to build, putting the city in exposure, financial exposure, and affecting the neighborhood will be the biggest insult of all. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Davila. Okay, seeing no other counselors, we're going to close the hearing. Thank you very much. Now with the hearing closed, are there any other deliberations? Seeing none, I think, Madam Clerk, we're ready for a vote on this. Please call the roll, Madam Clerk.
On approval of the zone change, Counselor Walsh.
No.
No, Counselor Allen.
No.
No, Counselor Delgado. Yes. Yes, Counselor Click-Bruce.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Curran.
No.
No, Counselor Santinello.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Fenton.
No. Okay, Madam Clerk, I believe that's 9 votes in the affirmative, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, zone change is approved. Any other matters before the council this evening, Madam Clerk?
There is not.
Okay, council will stand in recess until our next meeting. Councilors, our next meeting is scheduled for December 9th. We have a regular meeting that night. We're going to convert our hearings meeting to a regular meeting because there are no hearings. So we're going to try and put as many agenda items as we can on that meeting so that our last meeting of the year, December 16th, will hopefully go quick and we can get to our party as soon as possible. Okay, thank you, everyone. Good night. Council is adjourned.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said at the beginning.
We have a party December 9th?
I did a meeting on the 9th.
Okay,
A party on the 16th.
okay.
But